Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Live Without Limits, Unlock Your Potential, the ultimate blueprint to transform and shift your mindset. And today's show is titled Emotional Insight, Discovering Your True Self-Image Through Emotional Awareness. I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and we're diving deep into a topic that affects every one of us, especially our self image. Specifically, we'll be exploring how getting in touch with your emotions can help you discover your true feelings about yourself. Self image is how we see ourselves, our abilities, appearance, and overall worth. It's a powerful force that influences your decisions, behaviors, and even your success. But often, our self image is shaped by external factors like what others say about us or how society defines success. That's why we're going to talk about the importance of emotional awareness and understanding our true self image. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a practical tool to help you connect with your emotions and uncover how they shape your perception of yourself. So let's get started. But the first thing I want to talk about is this that what is our natural behavioral pattern? What's our strengths and what's our weaknesses? Well, there's the Myers-Briggs, there's the disc personal, there's the colors. I like to use the disc because it's easy to understand and much easier to interpret because you're dealing with the D, the I, the S, and the C. Now, the D is someone who has a dominant personality, a very strong, outgoing personality that believes that they control everything around them. Then you've got the I. That's your interpersonal skills. That's how you relate to the people around you. For people who have an high I, they have it's very easy to go to strangers and talk to them. Then you've got the steadiness personality, and that's the person who's the peacemaker, who goes along with everything that is said. That when they work for a company and they have a manual to read on the policies, they will read that policy and they will literally follow everything. And then you've got the C, or the conscientiousness personality, and that's the person that they question everything until they know all the answers before they make a decision. Now, often someone who's an S can be very introverted and very closed and very guarded, whereas someone with an D or an I are very outgoing and very personable. Now, we have all of these in us. Some of our weaknesses, some of them are our strengths. But how you interact with the people around you and how you deal with business, often you have to be able to move between these behavior patterns and get some of your weaknesses to become some of your strengths in order to do business the right way. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is understanding emotions and self image. We're diving into a crucial aspect of personal development, which is known as self image. To begin with, let's talk about what self image really means. Self image is the mental picture we have of ourselves. It encompasses how we perceive our own personality, abilities, and worth. For some, this image might be positive, filled with coincidence and confidence and self assurance. For others, it might be a negative or even distorted, influenced by self doubt and insecurities. Now, what are the origins of self image? And this can be created by the people around us. It can be the way you were raised and the things you hear. Now, and I'm going to digress a little bit, but I think this is important. In transactional analysis, they talk about the parent, the adult, the child. The parent says, you should. The adult says, I am able to. And the child says, I want. But here's the thing, as a parent tells you the things that you should do, or the negative things that they tell you about yourself, eventually you begin to internalize those thoughts and you keep repeating them over and over to yourself in your head to the point that you believe it. And this is all part of where self image comes from. But where does the self image come from? That's a key question. Our self image is not something we're born with. Emotions, or rather, let's say it this way, it's shaped over time by a range of factors, primarily our emotions and past experiences. Emotions play a significant role in forming our self image. Think of emotions as signals from our inner world, messages that tell us how we feel about ourselves in various situations. When you accomplish something meaningful and you feel proud, that positive emotions reinforces a strong, capable self-image. On the flip side, if you frequently feel anxious or ashamed, those emotions can lead to a more negative perception of yourself. Our past experiences, especially from childhood, also have a profound impact on our self image. Let's say you grew up in an environment where you received constant praise and encouragement. This type of experience can foster a positive self image. And what is that positive self image? Well, that's that you have a really good feeling about yourself. You can believe that you can conquer the world. But always remember, you're combining with all of that with all the things that your your natural behavior patterns, because you know what makes a family work and how they communicate with each other is that each person comes from a different place and a different behavior pattern, and they connect on that. If one person changes, especially if you grow up in a negative home and you have very low self esteem and a very low self image, and you begin to work on yourself, then there's a breakdown in that family simply because they are not willing to accept your changes. The only way to develop a healthy relationship is when two people involved in that relationship are willing to work on that relationship together. If you faced frequent criticism or felt neglected, you might have developed a self image rooted in self doubt or even a sense of inequality. Understanding this connection between emotions and self image is crucial because it opens the door to self awareness. By examining our feelings today, we can often trace them back to past experiences that shaped our self image. This awareness is a powerful tool as it allows us to start reshaping the narrative that we hold about ourselves. So, we'll explore other ways to reframe and rebuild a healthier self image. No matter what your current self image is, there's always room to evolve and grow. Understanding the emotional roots of our self image is the first step in the journey. Now, let's talk about how to recognize those emotional triggers because this is something that is very important. We have a better understanding of self image and its emotional roots. Let's move on to recognizing emotional triggers. Emotional triggers are specific events or experiences that provoke a strong emotional reaction. These triggers often tap into deep seated feelings about ourselves and can reveal a lot about our self image. So, what's exactly are emotional triggers? Simply put, they're situations or interactions that elicit an intense emotional response, often before we even realize what's happening. These triggers can vary widely from person to person. For some, it might be a critical comment. For others, it could be a feeling of being overlooked or unappreciated. Let's consider a couple of examples to illustrate this. Suppose that you receive a criticism at work. If criticism might trigger and the feelings of inadequacy, and let's get this and say this again so that it's much more cohesive. If your self image is tied to being perfect or perhaps successful, that criticism might trigger feelings of inadequacy or even a sense of failure. Seeing someone who appears more successful or accomplished might stir up feelings of jealousy or worthlessness, especially if you have doubts about your own achievements. And remember this, that often failure is nothing more than a stepping stone to success because there's no straight road anywhere. Just like in a relationship, there's no smooth relationship, that you're dealing with personalities and people are going to clash. But it's how you interpret that, how you sit down and work through those relationships that determine whether or not there's going to be cohesiveness or a breakdown in that relationship. Often, there's a lot of things that trigger things that we need to understand in order to be able to take us to the next level. Now, why recognizing triggers is so important? Well, here's the thing, identifying these triggers is a crucial step to gaining control over your emotions and emotional responses. By becoming aware of what sets off these intense feelings, you can start to manage how they impact your self image. Now, let's look at some practical tools to identify triggers. The first one being journaling. And I want to talk, I think when we get into this, remember the self help industry in psychology really started to grow towards the second half of the 20th century, especially as there be, became more of an awareness and you started seeing things move a little away from that conservative way of thinking. And adults and young adults started to recognize that there was more to life and how to deal with things. If you remember, what triggered that was the Vietnam War and its growth during the latter part of the 60s and into the 70s. And look at how what was going on at the time also influenced music and the music industry. Technology today influences everything across the board, and especially music industry. So understanding and recognizing where you're coming from can really help you. And journaling is a way to recognize your emotional triggers through, because what you're doing is taking the time to write down the situations that provoke strong emotions. Reflect on why these moments affected you so deeply. Ask yourself questions like, what does this situation remind me of? Why do I feel this way? How does this make me feel about myself? Over time, this practice can help you uncover patterns in your emotional responses and reveal underlying beliefs about your self image. Mindfulness. And this is a term that really is relatively new, but it also is all goes back into more becoming more self-aware of who you are inside and where you're coming from and how you feel. And we can't help who we're attracted to, but understanding that becomes from a innate subconscious need within us, because often we're attracted to people who their strengths are in our complement our weaknesses. And it helps you to be a cohesive team, because really relationships prior to the 1950s was the man was the breadwinner, the woman was the homemaker who took care of the children. As the 60s, you started seeing more women get educated. You started seeing more of an equality in relationships and working together as a team and understanding how to take all of these things and make them all work together. So, another powerful tool is mindfulness. By staying present and observing your emotions without judgment, you can begin to see patterns in how you react to different situations. For example, notice when a strong emotion arises, and instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to explore it. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why might I be feeling this way? This awareness helps you to create a mental space to better understand your triggers. Now, before I get into anything else, I also want to say this. Where you are in, in, in your journey through life, your age also affects you, because you can't expect a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old to be as self-aware about themselves and their feelings and their emotions and how to deal with things. But as they become and grow and age and learn new techniques, then you're better able to cope with things. And that's where having a good support system of someone to talk to really helps. And really, it was not until the 21st century that you started seeing where society became more aware of how to help younger people deal with their emotions when tragedies happen. Because prior to that, the mental health field was not talked about and recognized as an important part of what happens. Now, you see a lot about school shootings today. And what happens immediately? Grief counselors go into the school to help the kids deal with the shootings and the death of someone dying. And back, 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 and even it was just beginning to happen in the latter part of the 20th century, but it had not gotten to the point of where it is today. So many people who struggle just didn't know how to, especially at a young age, didn't know how to deal with it. And uh, it's like when a very young child loses a parent to death, whether it's a tragic death or it's an illness where it's happening over time, they just don't have the knowledge or the emotional maturity to deal with it. As you get older, as you learn, you begin to build up those skills to be able to deal with things like that. Tools for emotional awareness. With a better group of grasp of recognizing your emotional triggers, let's move on to the practical tools that can help you become more emotionally aware. These tools will assist you in getting in touch with your emotions and understanding how they influence your self image. Deep breathing and meditation. Let's begin with deep breathing and meditation. And I can remember back in the 60s, people would get audio tapes to listen to, which would take you through the deep breathing exercises to reduce stress. Whereas it's more talked about today and helping people deal with it and talked about and dealt with through meditation, it's still building a self-awareness. So let's keep these practical are powerful because they help you slow down and tune into your inner world. When you take deep, conscious breaths, you're signaling to your body that it's safe to relax. This state of relaxation makes it easier to connect with your emotions in a calm and centered way. Meditation is in particular allows you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment. By regularly setting aside time for meditation, you can become more aware of your thought patterns and emotional responses over time. This practice can help you better understanding how certain emotions arise and how they impact your self-image. Another invaluable tool for emotional awareness is journaling. Setting aside just a few minutes each day to write about your emotions can make a significant difference. Start by reflecting on your day. What did you feel today? What do you think you felt that way? And this process of writing helps you uncover emotions that might otherwise stay hidden, giving you greater insight into your inner world. By consistently journaling, you'll begin to notice recurring themes and emotional triggers. This awareness can help you better understand the link between your daily emotions and your self image, offering valuable insights into how you perceive yourself. Mindfulness. This practice of staying present fully experiences the moment without judgment. Mindfulness helps you become more attuned to subtle emotions and thoughts that might otherwise go unnoticed. Sorry about that. Because it's a way of observing your experiences as they unfold, allowing you to see things with greater clarity. Practicing mindfulness can be as simple as taking a few moments each day to focus on your breathing or to observe your surroundings without distraction. When you're mindful, you're more likely to notice the nuances in your emotional responses and how they influence your self image. By using these tools regularly, whether it's deep breathing, meditation, journaling, or mindfulness, you'll start to develop a deeper understanding of your emotions and how they shape your self image. This journey of emotional awareness takes time, but each step brings you closer to a more balanced and authentic understanding of yourself. Now, it's really interesting how we need to learn how to reflect on what our true feelings are. So now we're going to look at some of the tools to help you connect with your emotions. And let's talk about how to reflect on these emotions to uncover your true feelings about your self image. Reflection is all about taking the time to sit with your emotions and ask yourself some important questions. So, the first thing we're going to do is start asking yourself, what are these emotions really telling me about myself? Are they rooted in reality? Or are they influenced by past experiences or external opinions? Reflection is about being curious and open with yourself. For instance, when you experience an emotional like sadness or anger, take a moment to consider its source. Now, let's trace emotions back to their source. One helpful approach is to take a specific emotions and trace it back to its origin. Let's say you're feeling sadness. Ask yourself, did something specific happen today to trigger this emotion? Or is it connected to a deeper belief about yourself? Sometimes you might find that your emotions are telling you something important, like a need for change, self compassion, or acceptance. Other times, you may realize that your emotions are based on outdated beliefs or unrealistic expectations you have of yourself. It's also crucial to differentiate between true feelings and external influences. Sometimes we internalize other people's opinions or societal standards without even realizing it. Reflect on whether your emotions and self image are genuinely yours or if they're been shaped by outside sources. Are you judging yourself based on someone else's expectations or are you honoring your authentic self? This can be an eye opening process that helps you separate your true feelings from those that might have been imposed on you. Reflection can be challenging, especially when you uncover emotions that are uncomfortable or rooted in past experiences. But it's also incredibly rewarding that the more you understand your emotions, the better you'll be able to create a self image that truly reflects who you are rather than who you think you should be. As we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to recap that we've what we've covered. Let's explore the deep emotion between the deep connection between emotions and self-image. Discussed how to recognize emotional triggers and shared practical tools for increasing emotional awareness. We talked about the importance of reflecting on your emotions to uncover your true feelings about yourself. Your self image is not set in stone. By becoming more emotionally aware, you can start to reshape how you see yourself and create a more positive, authentic self image. It's a journey that takes time and effort, but it's one thing well worth taking. So, thank you for joining me today on Live Without Limits. Unlock your potential, the ultimate blueprint to transform and shift your mindset. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. If you did, please consider sharing it with others who might benefit from this discussion. Until next time, stay connected with your emotions and continue your path to personal success. And the last thing that I want to say is this, that for many of us, our emotions are tied to what we're feeling at that moment or who we have relationships with and how we interact with them and what triggers they bring up just as well. So remember this, it's up to you to live the best quality of life as you know it and treat yourself with respect because no one else will. And if you respect yourself, then you expect others to respect you as well.